Hi everybody, it's Katarina with Libelula's Path, and I'm back to talk about the 111 portal. Before I begin, I want to remind everybody that I'm an Akashic intuitive reader and I'm also an energy worker. The way that I get my messages is I tap into the Akasha, which is essentially source and the knowledge that source has, and I then offer messages about this upcoming event. So with the 111 portal, first of all, I like to start with what does 111 mean and what does it represent? 111 is an angel number, or often titled as an angel number, representing new beginnings, new, and new. 111 also adds up to a 3, which I tend to also associate with mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit. So the interconnectedness of everything. So to begin, what is the 111 portal going to bring forth for humanity and the collective consciousness? The first thing that I'm being called to talk about is to slow down and breathe. I have said this in a couple of my videos before about the importance of and the profound effect of slowing down and breathing. Right now, we are going through a really fast change as a collective. We are being pushed to see our shadows. We are being pushed to our purpose. We are being pushed to our path. And essentially, the accelerator has really turned up and intensified. So you're going from driving into sport mode in our life, in your life, and most likely in the majority of people's lives right now. Usually the first month of the year is very energetically intense because all the timelines, for those who are unsure of what timelines mean, meaning all of the things that have happened, will happen, are happening, are all condensed because we are closing chapters and we are beginning chapters. And we're also settling in, or beginning to settle into, what the energy of January is. A lot of people have been talking about having a lot of challenges and difficulties right now in their career and in their relationships, and also in the relationship with themselves. There's a lot of stuff going on right now. So how can we slow down? I'm always talking about slowing down because it is vital to understanding who we are. If we are constantly racing and we're constantly trying to get to the next thing in our lives, how are we really turning within, or how are we making time to listen to what our body needs and what we need in order to walk our path and walk our purpose? So that is very vital in this part of the portal, because the 111 portal is all about walking away from bad habits as well. So I don't like to label things as good or bad, because often, and that doesn't mean I'm perfect at it, let me start there, but good or bad entitles judgment and entails that there are things that we shouldn't be doing. I don't like the word shouldn't, because in the end of the day, we do things and things happen because they're meant to. So honestly, it's all about walking away from habits that do not serve us and no longer serve us. So for example, if you're constantly scrolling first thing in the morning or at night, or maybe instead of self-regulating your anxiety or self-regulating your emotions, you turn to alcohol, or you turn to partying, or you turn to finding a relationship, or to sex. These are things that we can use as humans to cope with uncomfortable feelings. But when we let ourselves feel the uncomfortable feeling itself, or what we perceive as uncomfortable, we give it less power. The more we want to run away from an emotion or ignore it or shove it down, we are giving it power to run our lives. So that then creates bad habits, or shall I say habits that no longer serve us. So something about habits is we created them because we did something repeatedly enough that it then became a habit. For example, if you go on a walk every day and then it turns into that you're going on a walk all the time, 4 or 5 times a week, that is then becoming a habit. If you make a smoothie every day for breakfast, that then becomes a habit, your habitual smoothie. But then there are things that can be detrimental to our growth, as I said before, whether it's excess screen time, whether it's using substances or other actions to numb the pain or to numb the feeling that may come through when we're changing and when we're growing. There's also emotional habits. So do we tend to get angry when things disappoint us or when people disappoint us? Do we tend to lash out at people that care about us because we don't know how to talk about our emotion? These are emotional habits. Or maybe when we get overwhelmed, we pretend like everything is fine even though it's not. I often see this a lot where we pretend like we're okay, but often admitting that things aren't going well at that moment can actually offer some relief and can allow you to step away or for a moment be able to observe how the difficulty and the challenge is affecting your life. So that brings me to not ignoring your emotion. Emotion can be so powerful, and it can be a tool. Emotions aren't a bad thing. And often as humans, we are upset that we chose or came here to be a human because emotions make it difficult. But often if we choose our emotions in an empowering state, we can use our emotions to grow. For example, stress and anxiety can create growth. When we feel anxiety about something, it can then catalyze movement of some sort that can then lead to growth. One example is I took a long time. I'd wanted to start a YouTube channel for quite some time. It had been months. It had even been about a year. And I was starting, the more I was putting it off, the more stress and anxiety I was getting. And then somebody close to me then made a YouTube channel, and that really inspired me to make my own YouTube channel because I was thinking, if they can do it, so can I. I have to just believe in myself and put myself out there. So that anxiety and that stress then caused me to push myself to do something that was out of my comfort zone. So I didn't let the emotion take over my body, but at the same time, I wielded that emotion, that anxiety, and that stress in order to create action. So when we don't like our actions, for example, if we're unhappy with our fitness level, or if we're unhappy with our relationships, often that unhappiness can then lead to, well, I want to be happy. So how can I be happy? Well, I can be happy by taking care of my body and going outside. I can be happier by really putting me first in relationships rather than putting everybody else first and then me burning out very quickly in my relationships. So these are ways that we make emotion. We don't avoid our emotion, but instead we use it in an empowering state. For example, avoiding the term, the phrase, why does this happen to me? Why does everything like this happen to me? Only bad things happen to me. Or it's their fault. Often when we turn something that can be a lesson into something that is negative, into a victimhood mentality, we are walking away from our empowering values. Things are done for us, not to us. That was one of the biggest lessons my own mother taught me, because it took me years in order to walk away from this victim mentality of things are happening to me. No, things are always a lesson. We can always find a silver lining, even in the worst traumatic experiences. That doesn't mean that it makes it okay that it happened. It doesn't mean that we cannot take time to heal. We have to take time to heal. But how can we face our emotion, and how can we utilize it in an empowering state? So with all these aspects, there's also the importance of understanding the power of our words. I went through a cycle, and I've heard many people go through cycles of affirmations where they're using a lot of affirmations and then that helps them recognize where they are telling themselves the opposite. For example, if you're using the affirmation, I am worthy, and the more you start to use it, you start to realize all the areas in your life where you don't feel worthy. Maybe you don't feel worthy of a healthy relationship. Maybe you don't feel worthy of taking care of your body. Maybe you don't feel worthy to get everything you desire out of this realm and out of this world. So using affirmations such as, I am worthy, I create my own happiness, I do X, Y, and Z, for example. I love myself. I approve of myself. These are powerful affirmations. Again, I recommend that you tailor them to what you need in the moment or what's the most uncomfortable. Is it really uncomfortable to say to yourself, look yourself in the mirror and say, I forgive myself? And if that's so uncomfortable, then I recommend in the morning and night looking at yourself in the mirror while you're brushing your teeth and saying whatever affirmation makes you the most uncomfortable, because that's the affirmation you most likely need. Words are powerful. Another way we can focus on changing our words and evolving is how we talk about ourselves, how we talk about our job, how we talk about our relationships, and how we talk about others. If we are in constant judgment of others, there often is reflective of a pattern of being judgmental of ourselves. Or if we talk about our job and we say, well, I'm not making enough money, or yeah, I'm not doing that well right now. And I'm talking about, let's say, in finances, often that is just creating more of what you don't want. Being able, and it doesn't mean you need to be necessarily dishonest, because maybe you are in a tough spot financially, but what we can say instead, or an example of what you can say instead, is I'm working on my finances. My finances are growing. I expect them to grow. And I'm calling in abundance. I am an abundant being. Getting into a state of instead of focusing on what you don't have, focus on what you do have and what you could have and what you're bringing in to have. I hope that makes sense. Again, if anything, for some reason there's a lack of clarification, please feel free to email me, katarinaandrea@libelulasppath.com, or DM me on Instagram. But one thing that I also wanted to say regarding, since we're on the topic of words, is yes, how we talk about ourselves. Often, sometimes we can say, well, I wish I wasn't, and then maybe you talk about your weight, or I wish I looked like this. Instead, it's I love myself as I am, and I'm working on every day to feel more comfortable in who I am and love my body and my skin. So because you invoke that affirmation, you then create actions. That actual vibration then creates actions where you can get to a point where you feel comfortable in your body. For example, if you're working on you want to be more physically fit, let's say, and instead of saying, well, I'm overweight, or I don't like my body, or I could be this, or I could be this size, instead saying to yourself, I love myself as I am. Because often nothing will really change if you don't change within. If you don't love yourself, you're not going to love yourself when you're 40 pounds lighter. You're not going to love yourself more when you finish that race. In the moment, it's satisfactory, or it brings a sense of satisfaction that you did this thing, or you finished this accomplishment, you checked something off. But if you don't love yourself truly, nothing external will change that. So instead saying, I love my body, and then maybe out of the love for yourself, you then choose food that makes you feel better internally. You choose exercise because it actually helps cleanse your energy for the day. It de-stresses you and puts you in a good mood. And instead of being conditional about our actions, we can then focus on what we want to feel at the end of something. Well, after I work out, I want to feel at peace. I want to feel relief. I want to feel a sense of release from the energies of the day. These are things that really are important to talk about and consider during the 1-1 portal, and that will be coming up. So just a recap, I'm going to go backwards to forwards. So talking of the power of word, how we talk, focusing on how we talk about ourselves. Then there's also the power of our thoughts and our emotions. How can we use our thoughts and emotions to empower ourselves rather than disempower ourselves? Also, the first one, which I have mentioned previously in other videos, but yet so important and so simple, is slowing down. How can we learn to slow down? Because we can't run away from ourselves. We can try, but we will have consequences, and those consequences can be illness, it can be mental health issues, it can also be relationship issues. These are all things that are signs that we are being inauthentic to ourselves. Of course, those signs aren't exclusive to not being yourself, but often when we are not honest with ourselves, there's no way we can change. So I really recommend during this time journaling, or maybe just spending time within self, thinking about, who am I to myself? How do I perceive myself? How do I believe people perceive me? Also, what is it that I desire? What is it that I want? And how can I achieve it? So, and when I say achieve it, we're talking about, how can I take a step today to get to that place? If you want success, what is it that, or if you want, let's say, to be more specific, monetary success, what can you do today in order to achieve that? Is that posting that video? Is it applying for that job? Is it actually taking care of yourself, going to therapy, journaling more, exercising more, working on yourself internally in order to attract the monetary success? So really think about those things, those journal prompts. I'll put them below, or even just questioning within if you don't want to journal. But those are really important. And then the last one I'm going to leave you with, the last journal prompt, is, how can I love myself more? How can I love myself more? So I'll leave you with that today. I hope you have a wonderful 1-1-1 portal, and I'll look forward to making the full moon that's coming up in January around the 15th, 16th, 17th. I have to check.